One of my group programs just finished. I run 15-week group programs, and every time a program completes, I'm just so inspired by the people who are willing to let go of being cynical and scared to work on themselves. It is a remarkable thing to choose to develop yourself in relationships, in love, in any way that we choose to take on personal development, whether it's through coaching or something else. It's extraordinary, because when you're saying, I'm going to work on myself, you're letting go of cynicism and fear. Anytime I've ever signed up for coaching or anything like that, there's this sense of skeptical nature about it. Like, is this person really who they say they are? Is this even going to work? And for so many of us, we don't even bother, even trying, because we feel like we're going to be let down. And justifiably so. We've all put ourselves out there for something and it didn't go the way we wanted. So of course we're feeling a little cynical. Of course we're feeling scared. And so, I just acknowledged the group of people that I was coaching for their participation in this 15-week program. And it's just so extraordinary. I was just celebrating, it just really takes something to be open to develop yourself. Because the opposite is to blame the world or blame your circumstance or blame your situation, to essentially victimize yourself. To choose to develop yourself, whether it's through coaching or anything else, is saying, I'm going to take the wheel back. I want to figure out how I can make a difference. That is so cool. And I believe every person who follows me falls somewhere in that category, that I believe I can make a difference. I want to understand something. I want to change something. I want to be the one to make a difference, rather than someone should do something about this. That is always a disempowering and failing perspective. Someone should do something about this. Then you got no power. And so for those of you that follow me, for those of you that take on coaching, for those of you that take on developing yourself, I just really want to celebrate you for choosing to make a difference. It's a big deal. It's a scary thing, and it requires you letting go and persevering over past challenges, obstacles, letdowns. So just incredible. Let that sink in. All the ways that you're taking on your life, that people aren't giving you a trophy for, that people aren't celebrating you for, that maybe no one's even thanking you for. Let it sink in that you really, really, really matter, and that your work makes a difference. Your attitude, your conversation, your way of being makes a difference. So I just really just want to take that in, because I don't think we acknowledge each other enough. I don't think we can acknowledge each other enough and celebrate each other for the work we put in to make a difference for ourselves. And for the people around us. Like, when we take on personal development, you make a difference for your mom and your friend and your sister and your partner. They benefit from that. You benefit from that. And I get the giant mountain that there is to go, I've been hurt before. I feel like I might get hurt again. And I'm going to step up to the plate. I'm going to take another risk. That's amazing. And so I invite you to celebrate yourself for that today. And then I just wanted to stay on here, because I haven't done a live in a while, and do some Q&A. So anybody has any questions and want to do some dialogue back and forth, I'm happy to do some Q&A with you. Who's got a question? My eyes are a little puffy because I was just crying during our acknowledgement in our last call. Who's got a question? What do you want to know? I'll just stay on here till a question or two pops up and we'll roll into it. Sometimes bringing these things into focus to close ones causes divide in relationships. How do you maintain contact without repeating old patterns with family? One of the hardest things to do is to change behavior dynamics with our families, because it's built in so deeply. You've got so much experience with each other's patterns that you begin to operate predictably with each other, almost like by default, like unintentionally. It's almost unconsciously happening. My mom says this, then I react this way, then she reacts this way, and so on. So how do we maintain contact? Well, bringing certain challenging things up. I think part of it is we want to look at that person is used to us being a certain way. So if we got family that's used to us being a certain way and we show up in a new way, that's going to be weird for them. That's going to be confronting for them maybe. It's going to be unfamiliar for them. And so we want to approach that with a sense of compassion and understanding, while also standing firmly in what works for us. So I would encourage to start small. I would encourage to start curious. So if you're having a behavior breakthrough you want to have with a family member, then I would encourage you to get curious with them first. Start to ask some questions about what they think about certain things with an agenda of connection rather than an agenda of they should learn something from this or you want them to get something from this. Have it be from a new kind of connection, and that will bridge conversations into something better that could turn into an actual new behavior change within your family. And I acknowledge you for taking that on. Family behavior change is like amazing. It's to me one of the most important things that many of us skip and just leave our family behind, and that breaks my heart. So love that you're up to that. Let me scroll. I missed a couple questions. What does it mean when they say one thing but their actions are saying otherwise? I mean, it's kind of a broad question. I would encourage you to be more specific. What does it mean when someone says, what are they actually saying, and what is their actual action? Sounds like the first thing to get clarity, that's what I'm hearing you want, is clarity, is to get clear on what you're seeing and what the difference is. One of the things I'm looking to change in relationship communication is how much we generalize and how much we assume. I think that gets us into a lot of trouble. If you look at almost any argument that you've had in a relationship, chances are one of us was reacting to an assumption versus what's actually happening in front of us. My partner and I are having trouble finding things we like together. I'll probably say something obvious to you right here. Time to taste some things. Time for you both to do some things that are different and new, that maybe you've never tried before, some activities, some adventures. It's going to be unfamiliar, might be a little bit awkward. I invite you to be giving yourself permission to maybe even be awkward about it together. Try something totally different. Why do guys say one thing but their actions otherwise? Why not just be honest from the jump? So I will automatically disagree with anybody saying guys or women. Why do guys do this? Why do women do that? Because the real coaching I would have for you is that you're making an assumption about men. And if you're making that assumption about men, it's going to be difficult for you to see anything but that. And I don't know if you believe in the law of attraction, but I would bet that you will start to attract people who act that way because you are already expecting them to. So the real coaching isn't to figure out why guys say one thing and do something different. The real coaching is to look at what past you're dragging around from guys in the past to guys in the future. Do you honestly think that most men cheat because it's, again, someone talking about most men? No, most men don't cheat. Many women cheat. Many women don't cheat. Many men don't cheat. I think loyalty is more rare than it's been in a long time. I think that's something I see people breaking up. I see people breaking up with families. I see people breaking up. Breakups can be really necessary and needed. And I think a lot of times it's just our egos getting in the way. So that's a whole deeper topic. But I feel bad that my avoidant partner never feels guilty about his behavior towards me. Why do I have such deep urge for him to feel guilt? Well, first off, I acknowledge you for recognizing that, because that's what you want to work on. Having someone feel guilty doesn't cause long-term behavior change. Most of us try to shame people into behavior change. We try to make someone feel bad and then they'll want to change. That is guaranteed not to work in the long term. You might get some change in the short term, but change based off of guilt won't be authentic, it won't be desirable, and the person will revert back to their previous patterns. So why do you have that deep urge? I think you probably have the urge because he's doing something that feels painful for you. Something hurts. And when we hurt, sometimes we feel that hurt is going to go away if other people hurt. It doesn't. You might feel a sense of kind of methodical connection, but it doesn't cause any breakthrough. It just creates more pain. And so the access for you here might be around sharing how this impacts you, how his behavior impacts you, rather than wanting him to feel guilty. And I also encourage yourself to, not make yourself feel guilty for even wanting that. I think guilt is a really useless emotion. It's very low level emotion. It lacks depth. It lacks development. It's something that we turn to when we're scared. And I think it would take way more courage, and I invite you to take on this courage, is to share the pain you're feeling rather than looking for someone else to feel bad about it. I don't think that helps anybody. I acknowledge you for bringing that up. How to avoid presumptuous dynamic, moving from knowing one person to another one in the dating dynamic. How to avoid presumptions. So like if you're going from one person and then dating another person and not having those assumptions or trying to predict what's going to happen with the next person based off what happened with the last person. Yeah, that really takes skill, because so many of us compare, right? So many of us, something happens and we compare people. Oh, this person's a little less communicative. Oh, this person's a little more generous. Oh, this person's a little like that. That's not easy to do. I think part of it is practicing a level of presence and letting go of the idea that whoever you dated before is going to tell you something about who you're dating now. That's a tough one. But I think the best kind of thing that might help a little bit is to focus on being really curious about the new person. Whoever the next person you're dating is, like, practice some genuine curiosity about them, and I think that might lead to you focusing on them more rather than on past people. Again, that's a real art and a real practice, so don't expect to do it perfectly. How to know if the person is coming back after a breakup. I don't know if you want to know that. I think that's not the question to ask. It sounds like you want them to come back. And I don't think that's a great place to look. I don't think you want to, it sounds like you're rejecting the breakup and trying to avoid that there is a breakup that happened and hoping that maybe they come back. That's going to be a really painful place to hang out. And I would argue that if that's what your question is, there's something that you are accepting that, if you really ask yourself, may be unacceptable to you. And this kind of goes to one of my most viral posts, which is, if someone doesn't want to be with you, don't ask why don't they want to be with you. Ask, why are you trying to get someone to be with you who doesn't want to be with you? If you've broken up, then you broke up for a reason. And my question to you would be, why would you want to try to convince someone to be with you, or why would you want them to come back if you've broken up in the first place? There might be something there around probably holding on to something that might not be there, holding on to some potential, or not listening to what's actually happened. So that's where I would invite you to look there. Sorry about my cat in the background. So some people, how do I make things up with an avoidant if the person is distant? Yeah, that's a tough one. My wife's a recovering avoidant and I'm a recovering anxious attacher. And so part of the anxious attachment is we do too much. Part of the avoidant attachment is we don't do much at all. And so there's this, like, the more you try to do, the less they will do. It's like kind of like this magnet, but it's repelling. So as you go forward, they go back. So part of your work is to pause and to not try to make things up so much. To just be there. To be a space where the avoidant person can approach. They can engage if they want to. But if you do too much, if you're always reaching your hand out, then that other person never has to confront they're avoiding attachment. They never have to step forward because you're doing all that work ahead of time, thus perpetuating the cycle of continuously not getting what you want from them. So the real access to growth for an anxious attached person is to be able to pause, to not try to fix, to not try to solve, and to be able to be with the anxiousness. Because us trying to fix and solve is us being scared of this feeling and avoiding this feeling rather than sitting in it, because we just don't like it. It sucks. It's like, oh, it hurts. I feel like they're leaving me. I feel like they don't care. How do I not feel this way? I'm going to go figure out what they want. Problem with that is, as you see, it perpetuates the cycle. So your job is to pause and be with that emotion so you can become more powerful than the anxiety rather than have the anxiety own you. Whatever emotion we avoid is one that's going to have power over us. And it's something remarkable, especially for anybody going through a breakup. If you can be with the pain, you can feel it, you can feel that scary thing, that anxiousness, that thing that you're scared to feel, that resistance, you will come out of that thing so powerful, so unstoppable, like a brand new person. But if you constantly try to fix it, if you constantly try to run from it, you will likely just take it into the next relationship. And then that'll break up. And then it just becomes this cycle over and over again that I'm sure many of you can relate to. He'll say, I'm attracted to you and wants to do things, but I initiate frequently, and he doesn't take the offer. Yeah, I mean, so this is where, again, my coaching would go to you and not him. So it would be like if I ask somebody to do something with me, 2, 3, 4 times is a stretch, and they say no 4 times, I'm not asking anymore. I don't want to convince anybody to hang out with me. I don't want to have to convince someone to be around me. Now, I get that life gets in the way and there's things going on, but at the same time, you've made an invitation. If the invitation's rejected more than 2, 3 times, then stop making an invitation. It's kind of the classic thing of don't talk to somebody who's not listening. I never coach people who aren't willing to be coachable. It's a waste of time because this is a two-way street. Now, whenever in relationships we're doing too much, we're not making it a two-way street. We're making a one-way street. And so we got to look at how we are getting in the way of this back and forth. And sometimes it's doing too much. Sometimes we're not engaging. Often it's one or the other. I'm over-emphasizing. I'm over-trying. I'm people-pleasing. Or I'm cynical, I'm resigned, I'm holding back, I don't say what's on my mind, I avoid. Often it's one of those two camps. If long distance in different countries, both divorced, and I don't need someone attached to me 24/7, how do I make it work if he's willing? Love the questions, guys, but try to say them a little clearer because I don't really understand if it's not written clearly. Do you have any mantras or mental sayings of sorts to prepare you for interactions where you are prepared to set boundaries with loved ones? I have tons. I so believe in mantras and affirmations. In my coaching program, I do something called a mind movie. I coach people on how to create essentially a digital vision board where you write out the key phrases that you want to embody but maybe don't believe yet. And so you talk about family and boundaries with loved ones. I might say something like, I'm great at setting boundaries. My boundaries are respected and maintained. People see my boundaries as an opportunity to connect with me. The more clear I am about my boundaries, the deeper connections I have. People love to meet me in a way that works for me. I have relationships that work really well for me and work really well for the people in my life. So part of this, you might not believe what I'm saying right there, and that's okay. A belief is just a thought we keep thinking. And so if you want to start to create new beliefs, I believe affirmations is a great way to start. And you don't have to believe the affirmation. First step is being okay with actually saying it. Can I actually say that out loud? Oh, that feels kind of gross. I don't really buy it. Okay, well, that's okay. I don't have to buy it. Let yourself off the hook from that part. Instead, just stay with, okay, can I see it as a possibility? Okay, is it a maybe? Maybe that's possible. Okay, I can let that open up. Okay, maybe it can happen in this conversation with this family member once. Okay, maybe that opens a door. And slowly you build momentum, and not suddenly it's a runaway train of great boundaries and wonderful family connections. I think a lot of us try to figure out step 12 rather than just focus on what is the small step that feels feasible now, that if I take that will then build more momentum to the next step. I really believe in momentum and letting ourselves discover as we go. Okay, I'll answer one or two more questions, then I'll hop off. Someone just saying, please help me. If you're curious about coaching or support, there's a link in my bio. You can apply for a discovery call. I've got an amazing team of people that take those calls, that shares all about the details of my coaching programs. I have different programs for different circumstances and different levels of investment. So if you're curious about coaching, click the link in the bio and find out all the details yourself. You'll get a taste of how we work. How do you find your own faults when you yourself advocate? How do you find your own faults when you yourself advocate your behavior? How do you find your own I don't really understand the question. When you yourself advocate your behavior? Maybe ask that one again in a different way. How do you attract different healthy people while you're healing and still attracting partners out of trauma? Yeah, so I don't believe you're ever fully healed. I think as you continue to develop yourself, there's going to be new wounds and new challenges, new heartbreak, new pain. So I think first let go of the ideal that you need to be healed. Now, if you're still attracting partners out of trauma, you might want to look at what is the behavior pattern that's happening. And if you're attracting out of trauma, then you're probably looking for someone to solve something for you, someone to maybe fill a hole, rather than seeing if there's a mutual reciprocal connection, seeing if there's like, oh, this feels good. I like something about you, you like something about me. So that kind of connection, if it's out of trauma, I would just encourage you to maybe slow down a little bit in the dating process. Get to know the person a little bit slower. Take your time with it. Don't feel like you have to get it somewhere quickly. Don't feel like you have to find out if they're worthy of being a partner or not. Just maybe let yourself date and get to know people with less of an agenda. I think that would be my coaching on that. All right, last one. Somehow these always end up to be like 30 minutes long. I have fun with you guys asking these questions though. I have an anxious attachment style and she's avoidant attachment style. I can relate, my friend. What's the best way to curate time together without pushing too hard? Create distance? ? No, don't create distance, but probably do less. So the anxious attachment style, again, like I said earlier, is going to try to figure everything out. It's going to try to solve things. It's trying to pull the person towards you. You trying to pull your avoidant partner towards you is going to be the very thing that pushes them away. Both of you are trying to control something. You're trying to control your state. She's trying to control the dynamic. So to do that, you both have to be willing to relinquish control. Now that's going to be harder for her than it is for you, because the avoidant attachment is a doozy. Like for her, for anyone with the avoidant attachment, they're relating connection to extreme danger. Like they are going to be abandoned and screwed over somehow. There's no way I'm getting close to you. You are somehow going to use this against me. So first is to have a ton of compassion for yourself and for them. Second is to be pausing more and trying to fix less. See if you can create opportunities for her to step up. But don't judge her for when she doesn't step up. I know that's a tall order. But what you want to do is you want to create those opportunities. So one thing I noticed when I was dating someone and I was totally in my anxious attachment, and someone said this earlier, I kept being the one to invite. I was inviting them to things, I was leading the way, and I was like, I'm tired of not getting more appreciation, more interest. And I was like, am I really even a space to get appreciation? Am I a space to get interest? It's like, no, I want her to step up more, but she might be just about to step up. She might be just about to message me, and then I'm the one who keeps doing it. So she never has to. I'm getting in the way of the opportunity. And I think this is the case for a lot of the things in personal development, is often we can have what we want if we can get out of our own way. And so getting out of your own way here is like letting go of trying to fix so much, letting go of trying to solve, and see if you can create space for them to step up, just almost by the absence of you trying to figure out the relationship, you trying to figure things out. That'd be my invitation there. Okay, promise, last question here. I like this one. What's the difference between reasonable and unreasonable requests? So, what's reasonable to someone might be unreasonable to someone else. For someone, it's reasonable for you to text me within 5 minutes of me texting you, and for someone else, that's ridiculous. So the challenge here is in the question. I think often we try to justify our boundaries and our wants too much. If you want something, you want it. It's not good that you want it. It's not bad that you want it. But too often we go into relationships going with these kind of IOUs like, that's a reasonable request. You should do it. Maybe it is to you. Maybe it's not to them. And so rather than trying to make it a reasonable request, it's more about whether they're open to it or not. You know, there's things that I ask of my coaching participants. There's things that I ask of my wife. There's things that I ask of my mom that might be unreasonable to them, that might be reasonable to them. It's not whether it is reasonable or unreasonable. It's whether or not it actually works for them. You know, maybe I want you to message me on your way home to let me know if I need something from the grocery store. That means a lot to me. And you're like, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to remember that. It's like, okay. Well, if that's ridiculous, are you willing to work with me on that? Or is that just something you'll never do? That's something I'm never going to do. Okay, that doesn't work for me, so I guess we're not a good match. It's information. So I really don't believe there are reasonable or unreasonable requests. I think it's more gauging that with other people. Now, if you're asking the same thing to a bunch of different people and everybody's saying no, then you might want to look at what you're asking. Maybe that's not the question to ask. Maybe there's another way to go about it. So thank you guys so much for the questions. You guys are amazing. And, you know, this message is really all about acknowledging people for being open to personal development. I want to make it absolutely commonplace. And I think we're on our way. I think the tipping point's coming where getting coaching, getting some form of personal development is just normal. It's just what we do because we are all people with trauma. We're all people with a challenging past and we want to have a new future rather than one that resembles the past. So that's going to be the norm. I think it's on its way, and I encourage you all to take that on, and I acknowledge all of you that are. So thank you for participating in this live, and I'll see you guys in the next one.